Hello, class. All right, so I'm gonna pick up where we left off in our previous Zoom video, which was we were talking about finding the means for group data, and we're at the bottom of your workbook on page 59. This is page 59. And so we're going to do a problem that shows you one of these finding the mean for group data, okay? And so just keep in mind this formula. Here's our symbol. Our numerator summation of this product f times x sub m, frequency times midpoint, divided by n. And n is the summation of the frequencies, the total of the frequencies. Okay, so if we go to page 60, see this problem here on page 60? So example 3-3, miles run. So below is a frequency distribution of miles run per week. Find the mean, okay? And so let's see. So we have here class boundaries, okay? So you can see that these n and 5, and they're going to be one decimal place beyond how the data is provided. So I'm going to write that down here. So even though we don't actually see the actual miles run, so we actually don't see the list of miles, it starts you off with the class boundaries. But you know that when they created the class boundaries, they had to n and 5, and they had to be one decimal place beyond how the data was presented. That means that the raw data was presented as county numbers. Natural numbers, county numbers, and so they had to do one decimal place beyond that. Okay, and they want you to find the mean. So remember what we said for these problems, that if you don't have the actual data, but you have the class boundaries, the mean will have to be rounded to the same place value as the class boundaries. Okay. Okay, so that means we're going to round to the tenths. Because these are in the tenths place. Okay, so I'm noticing here, even though it just says class, these are class boundaries. So they're the same numbers as these. These are the same frequencies. Yeah, so I'm not sure there was really a need to put these two tables side by side. I think they could have just had this here, really. But these are class boundaries, not class limit, but class boundaries. I don't know why they just put class. Sometimes they do that. So when they added everything up, they got a total of 20. That was your n. So that's your summation of f frequencies. Oh, and then they already calculate the midpoints for us. So usually we have to, on your problems, on your homework, y'all will probably have to calculate the midpoints. So remember how the midpoints are. I had the formula earlier, but you basically are taking the average. So like this 8 is because they took 5.5 plus 10.5 and they divide it by 2. Yeah, so on a test, you would remember want to show that for the first one, show this work for the first one. Then the other ones, you can just calculate it and not show this every time and then calculate that. But just for the first one, if I show you that, summation 5.5 plus 10.5, close parentheses divided by 2. The parentheses are important. If you do not put the parentheses, you won't get the same answer, okay? And so they're using on the midpoint x sub m, for the midpoint, they're using the lower class boundary plus the upper class boundary, and they're dividing that by 2. That's what they're using. And then they already actually computed the products for us. See, f times xm. So again, we're going to show our work for the first one. They took 1 f times xm, 1 times 8. 1 times 8 is 8. Yeah, so you always want to show the work for the first one. And then the others, you don't have to show that, but what they're doing is they're doing 2 times 13, and that gives them 26. So 2 times 13 is 26. 3 times 18 is 54. Okay, and then they added all those up. And I'm going to put parentheses around here. And when they added those up, they gave them a total of 490. Okay. All right. So then over here, when we come up here, so we have on the tests, you would want the symbol. That's a symbol for a mean, for also for group frequencies. Okay, this is called a group frequency here. Because they're giving you the class boundaries and the frequency. And then you want the formula, which is numerator summation f times x sub m divided by n, which basically is a summation of the frequencies. So now you know that you have 490, and you're going to divide it by the summation of n, which is 20. And let's see what that gives you. 490 divided by 20 is 24.5. And my label, this is here, you do want to label your units. And this one is a true unit. The other ones, remember, there was like calls and patients, right, when we were doing those other sample problems. This one is a true unit, miles. Okay, so you have this, you have the symbol, you have the formula, you have your substitutions. Okay, you have your answer, and then we didn't have to round. It already terminated on its own on the tens. You round to the tens place, and it already did. And then you have your units. You know, so on a test, I will look for that. On the it might be most cases it's a multiple choice question, multiple choice questions, and you circle the right answer choice. But then the teacher goes back. You have to upload your work within 15 minutes of your test submission. So I go back and I look at this, and if you don't have these, then I take off points for not supporting your answer choices. So you need to have your symbol, you need to have your formula, you need to have your substitutions, okay, your units, if you have true units, which has to do with length, right, or some kind of dimension, right? You need that. And then the correct rounding, okay? And so I'm also going to show you um, there's also something called the modal class. Let me go and talk about that also. So let me write it down here. I am also going to show you how to do this on a calculator, but let me talk about the modal class first. So what is that? So the modal class is either going to be the class limit or it's going to be the class boundary. Because they usually don't give you both. Usually it's one or the other. They either give you the class limit or they give you the class boundary. Rarely do they give you both. But it's going to be the class limit or the class boundary that has the largest frequency. So if we go back and we look at the problem we were just doing, and you look at your frequencies here, or you can look here in your frequencies, it looks like the biggest frequency, doesn't it look like it's 5, right? And they give you the class boundary. This is either going to be the class boundary or the class limit. So this one's so it looks like for this problem, it looks like the modal class is going to be the class boundary 20.5 to 25.5. So the modal class, MODAL, the modal class is the class boundary 20.5 to 25.5. And then oftentimes on the tests, I'll ask you why. How do you know that? Why? And it's because it has the largest frequency. Okay, so the modal class is the class boundary 20.5 to 25.5, and that's because it has the largest frequency, comma, which was in this problem, it was 5. So if you look at the frequency, 5 was the bigger number. Okay. Okay, now let me also show you um, how to do this on the calculator, how to check your answer on the calculator. So on the calculator, you have to put the midpoints in L1, and you have to enter the frequencies in L2. Okay, so to do this on the calculator, so this is to find the mean for a group frequency. Then you have to enter the midpoints in L1, and you have to enter the frequencies in L2. So you have to start with that. So if I do that, to remember how to do that, you have to go to Stat, and then you have to, right here under Edit, one edit, hit Enter down here. Then you have to clear your data. So go up to the top and clear, hit Enter, and then scroll over here Go up to the top of L2, hit clear, enter. Okay, and then remember where these go, you don't want to type them in backwards because then you will get different results. But see, your midpoint is L1, so you want to put that in there. 8, 13, 18, 23, 28, 33, 38. Okay, then go to L2 and enter your frequencies in L2. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 3, 2. Yeah, and again, they have to, you cannot have a mismatch. You should have the same amount of data in both columns. Okay, and you should double check, make sure you don't have an error. Okay, all right, so then after we do that, let me see what I can write here. So I have a note here to put, this is, so we have stat, 1, edit, enter, and then enter midpoints in L1, enter frequencies in L2. Okay, and then we're going to go to, just like we just learned how to calculate the mean. So we have stat, and you're going to tab to calculate, and you want this one variable stats, enter. Okay, and then under your list, you're going to ID your midpoints in L1. And then remember how we had previously talked about leaving the frequency blank? Well, not here, not in a group frequency data. We're going to have to ID the frequencies in L2, which makes sense because frequencies, this frequency list, that does make sense there. Okay, so remember how to type these in L1 and L2. Remember, you would have to hit the second button, and then like you would have to, in this case, hit 1, because right above 1 you'd have L1. Here you'd have to enter 2 because right above 2 you have that little L2. But then after that, then you go to the calculate, and then you enter, and you want to look for, you want to see X bar. Okay, so it's the same symbol whether you're doing like the problems that we did on page 59. Remember, whether you're doing these kind of problems where you had data, you're trying to find the mean. Remember X bar, and the formula is different. See, the formula is different. But here you have group frequency data. So you're still using mean, but you have a different formula, see? And then you're still doing your substitutions. And then these ones, this one had labeling because it was miles. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go, we already entered our data, and now we're going to go to stat, and then tab to calculate, and then one variable stat, so hit enter. And then tell your data, remember your lists, tell your data where you put your midpoints. So we put our midpoints in L1. So that's good here. And then see, this is vacant from before, but now you have those frequencies that you enter. So you want to remember your frequencies are in L2. So you're going to hit second and then number 2, because number 2 has L2. Okay, then you tap down to calculate and hit enter. And you want to see X bar, just 24.5. Okay. And that matches, see, that matches what we have here. And then you can double check too. See, you're doing your substitutions here, 490. See, you can double check that work. And then 20, see that? You can double check that also. Which when you do it by hand first, we're going to have you do it by hand first on your tests. So you're going to have a table to complete. And some of these will be filled in. You don't have to complete every row. Some of these will be filled in. So you shouldn't have to do every single one, but I believe some of them are filled in. But the ones that aren't, you'd have to fill those in to find that total here. Okay. Okay. Let's see. And let's see, this problem, I see this problem here, but I think this is another one where we have the mean and the modal class. And I think I'll have you do that one on your own, and then when I scan these, I'll provide the scan, then you can check them. But I was going to do that extra problem because that came from the ebook also. I was going to do this one here because this one also, you see, you're finding the mean and the modal class. Okay. So the thing is, if you already printed that out, if you haven't printed out, you can just pause the video and go print that. Okay, good. And this is something extra aside from the workbook. This is in your modules, your test one modules, and it'll be right by your under the Zoom link for this Zoom link that I put up. It'll be right there in that little vicinity there. Okay. Let's see. So specialty coffee shop. So a random sample of 30 states shows the number of specialty shops for a specific company. Find the mean and find the modal class. Okay. So if I were to add these up, I bet that would give us 30. So let's double check. If I add up 12, and you see how I didn't, my data that I had before from the previous problem, I just hit 12 and that disappeared, that previous data. So I have 12 plus 7 plus 5 plus 3 plus 3. Yep, and then see that gives me 30. Okay, so summation of f, which they're calling it n, is 30. And then notice the class boundaries. Notice how these end in 10 in the tens place. So it's similar to these. The previous one we're doing also was the tens place. And even this one, kind of boring, right? Because sorry, they're all in the tens place. Even that one's the tens place. So sorry about that. But so that's why these are all in the tens place. So you would have to round. Let's see what it says. Does it say anywhere where you have to round? You would have to round to the tens place also. It has to be the same as the class boundaries. Remember we talked about that? Has to be the same as the class boundary. So this is just saying description, class boundaries n and 5 have one more decimal place than our raw data, which was presented as counting natural numbers. We just don't actually see the actual data, but this is in the tens place. This is done correctly. So when we find the mean here, we will have to round to the tens place, and it has to be same as class boundaries. That's the rule. That's the rule of thumb. Round to 10, same as class boundaries. Okay, so if you look at this chart that we've created, and on a test you would have, see how some of these are filled in? That's to save some time. And the first one you should show this. On the first one, like the first one that you make or that you complete, you have to show your work for the first one. So here I'm showing you as an example. They took 0.5 plus 19.5 in parentheses divided by 2, and that gave them 10. And then they did 12 times 10, which is 120. Okay. And when you do your test review, which is required before you take the test, you're going to have a problem like this on your test review. You can use your test review to jog your memory while you're taking the time test. So you can do things like this. See how your teacher put L2 and L1 to jog your memory on your test review. That way you do that correctly on your actual test. Yeah, so here, let me just do one more here. I'll show it. So here they're doing 19.5 plus 38.5, and they're dividing that by 2. Okay, so parentheses 19.5 plus 38.5 close parentheses divided by 2 gives you 29. Okay, and you see this one's already done, 48. And then this one, if I do this, it'd be 57.5 plus 76.5 close parentheses divided by 2, 67. And then this one's already done. Okay, and let's see, if I do the difference, there should be a pattern, right? If I do 29 minus 10, looks like the difference is 19. So if I add 19 plus 29, so it gives me 48, plus 19, C gives me 67, plus 19. Yeah, so that if you want to check your work, you can in case you made a mistake. Okay, now here are your products, frequency times the midpoint, 12 times 10. Here we're looking at 7 times 29, which is 203. See that? Okay, this one is 5 times 48, 240. Yeah, so you see 3 times 67, 3 times 86. Yeah, so you this part where you're multiplying f times xm, you only have to do that on your first one. You don't have to do it every time. You just show me on the first one how you got that in your work, okay? Okay, and then if I sum in my total frequencies here, well, we did that over here, right? Remember, I already did that over here. If I add all these up, remember that gave me 30. So that's what's going to happen here. So when I add these up, that gave me 30. That's my N. And then these, I have to add up these. So I'm adding up 120 plus 203 plus 240, 201, 258 to get all of them. This gives me a total of 1,022. Okay. So then I have my formula. Remember, I have x bar equals summation parentheses f times xm close parentheses divided by n. And then when I substitute, I have 1,022 divided by 30. And then let's see what that gives me. So I already have this here. So just do divided by 30. And it gives me 34.0 and a lot of sixes. And then finally a 7. And then there's no units here, right? These were specialty coffee shops, right? Okay, the amount of, these are coffee shops. Okay, but as far as rounding, we said we had to round to nearest tens, same as the class boundaries. So this is the tens place right here. This is ones, decimal tens. So look at the hundreds. Is that 5 or more? Yes, that's a 6. So add 1 to this box digit. So we have 34.1 coffee shops. Okay. All right. And then let me just check that over here. I have this previously shown. Let me make sure it's the same. Yes, it is. Okay, good. And then it asks also for the modal class. So let me see. See the modal, the mean, and the modal class. So remember, the modal class is it's either going to be the class limit or the class boundary. So the class boundaries are given that has the biggest frequency. So you see that one's 12. So the modal class would be this. Okay. So the modal class is the class boundary. It was 0.5 to 19.5. And it's because it has the largest frequency, which was 12, Okay. Okay, so that shows that. Okay. Yeah, and it was just more practice. So this one you can do on your own. Then I'll just write it up and then you can check. But this is also about copy machines and they're asking for the mean and the modal class. Okay. All right, let's go to something else now. Okay, so let's go to page. Oh, I forgot. Was I going to show this on the calculator too? We need to practice on the calculator. Sorry. So, because on the test you'll have one where you do it by hand, but then you're also going to have to check it on the calculator. Okay, so then here we're going to go to stats, edit one edit, and then clear. So go to the top and clear. Come over here, go to the top and clear data. Okay, and then you're going to enter your midpoints in L1. So your midpoints are going to be 10, 29, 48, 67, 86. Okay, then you go to the second column, L2, and you're going to put your frequencies in 12, 7, 5, 3, 3. Okay, then you're going to go to Stat, tab to calculate, hit enter. You want that one variable stat, so hit enter. Tell your calculate where you put your data. So yeah, L1 are your midpoints. And yes, L2 is your frequency list. Okay. And then hit calculate. And it should be similar to what we got down here. We're checking this. See? That's the exact. See there, there's your summation. So that we did this right. There's your 30. See, we did that right. Yeah, and then we just, and then, yeah, there's your 30 here also. See your summation of x. You double check, look for errors. And then then you have to round this and there's tens. So that's not on here. You have to know about the rounding rule. Okay, so it checks out. Okay, so now let's go to page 61. Measures of central tendency. Okay, so let's say you're asked now to find, we were talking about the mean and the mean for group data. Let's say you're trying to find the median. And the median in your textbook, they use MD in your textbook, and then also MED, that's the TI 84. Okay, so you want to be familiar because you want your symbol or your abbreviation. So this one doesn't really have a symbol, but the abbreviation you have to be familiar with. Your textbook uses MD. Your calculator, and let me see if I can show that on here. I did. Let me just go back and calculate. Let me see if I scroll down. There's a min, there's a quartiles, which we'll do later, I think in 3.4. But here, see MED? That's a median. So there is a abbreviation. They use MED on the calculator, but your textbook uses MD. So just be aware of that. But you want to arrange the data in ascending order, and that means, what does that mean? That means smallest to largest. And you should have a key for that. Let me see. Once you put your data in, if I go to stat, and then see right here, sort, that's number 2, sort A, and that stands for ascending, smallest to largest. Sort D, number 3, is for descending, descending. So that's largest to smallest, okay? But we want sort A, number 2. So just keep that in mind. Then you want to determine the number of values in the data set. And that's because if you have an odd amount, you want to select the middle data value as the median. So if you have an odd amount, you just have one middle number. But if you have an even amount, you want to find the mean of the two middle data values. That is, you have to add them up and divide by 2. So you have to like take the average, okay? And so we have, let me see, I have 2 examples here. I think one has an even, one has an odd. Let me just count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11 data values, and that's an odd amount. Okay, let me check the other one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That one has 8 data values, which is an even amount. Okay, yeah, so this is good because this is going to show you one of each, if each case, if you have an odd amount or an even amount. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I am going to, and you're finding the median, see on both of these problems, but I am going to sort the data first. Okay, so it says police officers killed. Oh, that's sad. Okay, let's see. Police officers killed. Okay, so let's see. The number of police officers killed in the line of duty over the last 11 years is shown. I want you to find the median, the number in the median. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll do it by hand first, and then we'll show you on the calculator how to do it. But that way you'll see how the calculator is doing it, okay? Or so you'll be able to check and understand what the calculator is doing, what we're going to do by hand. So if we're going to do by hand, to do by hand, you want to start by sorting data, putting it from smallest to largest. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and input the data. So I'm gonna enter the data in L1, and then we're gonna go to stat, and then we're gonna go to number sort, and then we're gonna tell it to sort L1. Okay, let's do that. Okay. Okay, so here we go. Go to, turn it on, go to stat, go to edit, and maybe I should put that in here. So you would go to stat, go to one, edit, enter. Okay, and you're going to clear your data. Go up to the top, hit clear, enter. Okay, you're going to enter your data, 177, 153, 122, 141, 189, 155, 162, 165, 149, 157, 240. Okay, and then we're going, so we got all the data in, so then we're going to go back to stat, and then go to sort A, which I have here. And then you're going to tell your calculator, who do you want to sort? Which column do you want to sort? So you're going to hit second and number 1. So you have to type second, and then you have to type number 1 because number 1 has L1 on top of that. And then hit enter. Done. Okay. So then you go back to stat and then edit. Okay, and then they should have put the data in order. Let's see if they did. So you see, let's see the top. Yep, so 122. Oh, that doesn't look like it was sorted, does it? Sorted, we said smallest to largest. Oh, yeah. Smallest to largest. Yeah, smallest to largest. So I was looking over here. Smallest to largest. Yeah. So they have 122, 141, 149, 153, 155, 157, 162, 165, 177, 189, 240, and that's it. Okay. So now we got it from smallest to largest. And if we're doing this by hand, what happens is, and you have an odd amount. So that means if you have an odd amount, you should have one middle number. Okay. So you cross out one in the back, or one in the front, one in the back. Okay. Then you cross out one in the back, one in front, one in the back, one in the front, one in the back, one in the front, one in the back, one number in the front of the list, one in the back. And then you see here how we end up with, see that one middle number? That's going to be the median, MD, which is MED, which is 157. Okay. Now, when you do this solely on the calculator, you just enter your data, okay? And then you would press, and we already have the data in there, it just happens to be in order. But you would enter your data, you would go to Stat, Calculate, One Variable Stats. And here you have to be careful because you don't want anything in the L2. You only have this data. So remember, you have data from the previous problem. So you do have to be careful here, and you have to clear that. You can clear it or delete it, but you clear that. And see, it takes that off. And then you go down and you hit enter. And then you keep scrolling down to see 1, 2, 3 times. See that right there? 157. So we got that. Okay, so now let me put that down. So to work solely on the TI 84, you would enter your data in L1, and then you would just go to Stat, and then you just go to Edit, One, Edit. Well, let's see. You would enter your data in L1, then you go to Stat, and you actually tab to Calculate. Sorry. And then you would go to one variable stats, and then you hit enter. And then this is important. Then you would go to lists, and you would tell it that L1 is where your data is at. But then here you'd have to go to frequency lists, and you have to leave this blank. You have to clear or delete any entries. And then you go to calculate, and then you go to enter. And then you have to scroll down. I think it was some 3 times until you get to medium. 1, 2, 3. So scroll down some 3 times until you get to the median, which is 157. Okay. Okay. All right. So for the second one, we'll go ahead and do it first on the calculator, and then we'll do it by hand. So I have here MED equals. Okay. So we're gonna enter the data. To go to Stat, Edit, Calculate, and clear this column. Okay. So enter your data. 684, 764, 656, 702, 856, 1133, 1132, 1303. So these are tornadoes in the United States. These are the number of tornadoes that have occurred in the United States over an 8-year period. Find the median. Okay, so you enter the data, then you go to stat and edit, edit. So let's see, go to stat, and calculate. Yeah, so go to stat and calculate. And then one variable stats. And then now, see, this is already left vacant. From the previous problem, you just have L1 and then calculate. And go down 3 times. And you see medium, it says it's 810. Okay. And again, we're not labeling. These are tornadoes. I'll go ahead and put tornadoes, but this is not a unit. This one was unfortunately this was police officers killed. Sorry, police officers killed. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so remember what happened here. We enter the data in L1. And then after you enter your data in L1, then you would go to stat, and then you would tab to calculate, and then you want that one variable stats, enter, and then you tell your list is L1. You leave your frequency list vacant, leave it blank, and then you go to calculate and hit enter. And then you scroll down 3 times until you see medium. And it said it was 810. Okay. So now we're going to go back and do it by hand and just show you that that the calculator is doing all that. When you do it on the calculator is doing it. It's already sorting it. It's already, seeing if it's an odd amount or an even amount. It's already doing that. You just scroll down, get your answer. But when you do it by hand, we got to put this, if you're doing it by hand, you have to put this in order. So I'm going to have to, we already have the data in there, right? We already put the data in there. So I'm going to sort it. So I'm going to go to stat. So I'm going to say, by hand, you see. By hand, you want to enter the data, which we did. And then you want to go to sort. So you want to go to number 2 and hit enter. And I'm going to tell this it's L1. So it's second, and the number 1, and then enter. And it'll say done. Okay, so then you go back to stat, and you go back to 1, edit, and enter. And then you should see that it should have put the data in order from smallest to largest. So see, there's 656, and then there's 684, and then there's 702, 764, 856, 1132, 1133, 1303. Okay. Okay, and then you cross out one data value in the front, one data value in the back, one data value in the front, one in the back, one data value in the front, one in the back, and see how you end up with 2 middle numbers. See that? When you're doing it by hand, so you have to take the mean. So after you do that, then you're going to take the average of the 2 middle numbers. When you have an even amount, right? This one had an even amount. So you have median equals 764 plus 856 divided by 2. So here are your 2 middles, 764 plus 856 divided by 2. So here I can just go to parentheses and it will take it back. See? Oops. Nope. So let me do a second quit. If I do a second quit, it will take me back. So I'll have to do a second quit. When I did a second quit, that gave me a clear screen, and I'm going to do open parentheses 764 plus 856 close parentheses divided by 2. And it should give me what the calculator said. Remember, we're just checking. See, 810. But it does work. So that second quit, what that second quit does, second quit gives a what, clear screen. So the reason why I'm doing it both ways, the reason why I'm doing it like by hand and then checking on the calculator, just so you can understand what the calculator is doing, how it's taking the average. If it's an even amount, it's doing the average of the middle too. If you have an odd amount, you'll have one middle number. So on the calculator, you enter your data, and then you go to calculate one variable stat, and then you would just scroll down 3 times. And that's really all you need to do. And I look for MED, median. That's really all you have to do. You don't, when you're using a calculator, you don't have to sort it. And then like if you have an even amount, do it by hand, calculate that. I'm just showing you both ways so you understand what the calculator is doing, okay? Okay, then there's another central tendency. These are all measures of central tendency. So the other one is the mode. So that's on the next page, on page 62. So far we've done the mean. We've done the mean for group data, and then we've done the median, okay, which basically it didn't say what it was, but basically it's the middle number. Yeah, so I'm surprised that it never said that on this page. Well, it does say select the middle data value or the average of the two middle. So yeah, it does kind of tell you the median. It's the middle, right? Number in the middle. Okay, and then let's go to page 62. So it says measures of central tendency, called the mode. So the mode is a value that occurs most often in a data set. It is sometimes said to be the most typical case. There may be no mode, one mode, which is unimodal, or two modes, which is bimodal, or many modes, which is multimodal. Okay. Okay, so let's see what notes I have for that. Let's see, anything extra I want to write to that. Mm. For no mode, I have a note that says that if you have no mode, that happens when all the data appears the same amount of times. So if you have something that's called uh, no mode, that's because this occurs when all the data appears the same amount of times. Okay, and that's why that would be considered to have no mode. The other thing I would have a note to say is that the TI-84 does not provide the mode. So you know how like a while ago we used that one variable stats and then we scrolled down 3 times and we found the median, MED. Okay, well the calculator will not provide you the mode, so you'd have to know how to do that on your own. You can use a calculator as a tool. If you have a lot of data, you can use it as a tool. You could sort your data either in ascending or descending order. You could sort it, um, and then keep track of the occurrences and anything that would occur the most amount of times, which would be called your mode. You could also do that. Okay. So if I enter this data, go to stat, edit, you want to clear the data in the first column, and you want to enter this data here. So NFL signing bonuses. So find the mode of the signing bonuses of 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 NFL players for a specific year. The bonuses in millions of dollars are, so I have 18, which is the same as 18.0 14, which is the same as 14.0, 34.5, 10, 12.4, 10. Okay, I'm just double checking that the data is right. Okay. All right. Okay. So then I'm going to enter the data in L1. And I'm actually going to use, I'm going to sort the data. I'm actually going to use, just so we can do something different, I'm going to use enter data in L1. And you can use either sort. But I'm going to use the, so if I want to do the other one, the descending, because we already did the ascending. So if I do the other one, use either sort. So you would go to stat, and then you would go either to 2 or 3. So I'm going to go to 3, sort D. Okay, so I hit stat, and then I'm going to go to number 3, just to do something different. And that stands for descending. And then hit enter. And then it's going to want to know who do you want to sort, which column. So you want to tell it L1. So you want to hit L1, which is second, and then the number 1, and then enter. Okay. So I go to stat to check it out. Then I go to edit, one edit, and then enter. And you should notice that it is descending from smallest to largest. So you see none of these are repeating. This appears once, this appears once, 14 appears once, 12.4 appears once, 11.3 appears once. But look, check out 10. 10 shows up 1, 2, 3 times. See that? 3 times. So that means that the mode is going to be 10. So oftentimes what it tells students you can do is here's your data value, make a little table, and then keep track of the number of occurrences. So first we had, we'll go back to the top, we had 34.5, and that just appeared once, and 18 that appeared once, and 14 that appeared once, and 12.4 that appeared once, and 11.3 that appeared once. But then you saw 10 that appeared 3 times. Okay, so this has the most occurrences. So that means the mode is 10. Okay, what is 10? Okay, so let me do one last problem and then one last problem. Then we'll stop the video. Okay, so licensed nuclear reactors. So the data shows the number of licensed nuclear reactors in the United States for a recent 15-year period. Find the mode. Okay, so again, you want to enter the data on the calculator and then use either sort either D or A, you choose. So sort that and then make a little table for your data of occurrences. So let's see. Where can I put that? I guess I could start here. Okay, so I'm going to go to Stat, Edit. I'm going to clear, so go to the top, clear. Okay, I'm going to enter all this data. It's 104, 104, 104, 104. You can already tell that it looks like it's probably going to be 104 at 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. 107, 109, 109, 110, 109, 111, 112, 111, 109. Okay, so you can sort it either using ascending or descending. So if I go to Stat, and if I again use 3 descending, and I tell it where my data is at, second, and then number 1, hit enter. Then I go back to Stat, Edit, and there's my list. So let's see. So it is sorted from largest descending. So 112, yeah, largest is 112. That showed up once. And 111 showed up twice. And then 110 showed up once. And then 109 is 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 107 showed up once. Then you have 104. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so it looks like this one has the most occurrences. Okay. And even though you don't have to calculate anything, but just to make sure you count. See, this one had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Just to make sure you didn't, even though you don't have to calculate anything, you could do a stat, calculate, enter, and you tell your data it's an L1, calculate. But just to get this count, see how it says 14? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. See, 15. That means I left something out, or left the data value out. Let's see if I can see which one it was. I think it was 109. 109, I have a note here on my side. 109 actually showed up 5 times. So yeah, that is a good idea to do that, just so you can count, so that you can, even though I didn't have to calculate anything, I just was trying to make sure I had all my data values. I think even if I had gone to just stat edit my list, if I scroll down to the last one, 14, see right here, 14, and see how 15 is empty. So that, without having to calculate, that one also tells me I had 14 entries. So that would tell me that I had left something out. It looks like I left the 101 entry data value of 109 out. So this one happens to be the mode includes the mode includes 109 and 104. So the mode is considered by Modal. Okay. All right. And I'm not sure why this is here. We already covered this. I don't know why this is here. It's kind of odd. Find the modal class for the frequency distribution of miles. So the modal class is the one with the largest frequency. That's kind of odd. I'm not sure. It's unusual. I'm not sure. That's kind of out of place. Okay. All right. And so I'm going to get ready to stop the video here. But when we pick up next time, when I look at page 63, we pick up next time, so this I'll let you find the mode on your own. I won't do this one in the video. Uh, when I scan my copies, I can put that in there. You can double check that. But when we start the video again, and these are just always extra links that should still be working. They're YouTube links. So if you ever need extra reference, you can type those in. Type those in and look at those. Those are extra. But then when we come back, we'll start with the mid-range when I do the next part of the video. So take a little break and we'll do the mid-range then on page 63 when we continue and pick up. Okay?